Thank you so much for joining us online today. We so appreciate you checking out this message. We hope you enjoy it and are inspired to live more and more like Jesus Christ by His grace. If you would like to support the ministries of Rancho, you can do so at rancho.tv/giving. Set up a giving profile and a reoccurring gift. We'd sure appreciate that. Enjoy.
We are right in the exact middle of a series we're calling Life Plan. It's kind of around that New Year thing. It's a time to maybe do some evaluation of, where we're at, where we're going. Make just some tweaks here and there, not some heavy-handed stuff like making hardcore covenantal commitments, for the rest of your life, but just a little evaluation, a little space to, think about, well, where am I in my life? Where am I in my sense of mission or purpose or values? And then as we go, we get a little narrower, talking about the community that we walk with, and today we're going to talk about our family life. This last week, I got an assignment from a professor of mine. I went back to school, I have my backpack lunch pail, going back to school, and it's just kind of a bucket list thing for me, plus to just keep improving my own life and leadership. And so I'm back in this program, and this last week, the professor says, hey, listen, I want you to do what he called a painted picture. Kind of like a vision of where you and the industry you lead, where that's going in the next 5 years. So 2030, paint us a picture. He says, I don't want charts and graphs and numbers. You can include some of that, but I want like this visceral, emotion level, experiential, inspirational vision of where you're going and where you're taking the people that you lead. So I thought, I can get my head around that. I love that stuff. We do vision all the time around here, and it's a lot of fun. I think it's one of the things we do best. And so I said, hey, Jenny, we're gonna film. She's my camera person. So give her the camera rig, we go film some things. I tell Alex, who's our arts and graphics and media and all that, give me the latest videos you've got of this place, church, school, rescue mission. And I spent way too much time on this assignment. It's only worth 5% of my grade. Should have taken an hour. I'm 7 hours deep in this thing, but it was a passion. And when I was done with it, I thought, it's like a 7-minute, 26-second thing. And I'm like, that is good. That is really good. Nobody will ever see it, except my professor, but there was just that sense that I did something that was, I think, inspirational about where we're heading as a church, school, rescue mission, and this Jesus-centered, grace-based humanitarian learning community, and what that looks like, and sounds like, and feels like. So that was a little bit of mini life plan that I did this last week. And we're going through the same thing here during this series. We want this to be inspirational. We want this to be something that really stirs your heart and soul. Not just, here's a verse, obey the verse, but a vision, like a deep, powerful, profound vision of where you want your life to go. And all the pieces and parts of your life and relationships that are super important to you, this community of people that are walking this journey, where do you want to go now? How are we going to get there? 4 weeks ago, we started with a big picture imagination of our destination. Imagine our destination. There's no point in doing a life plan if you don't know where you want to go in the future, right? So we gave the illustration and the metaphor of a waterfall, right? This place of beauty and rest and majesty. That's where I want my life to go. And only you can articulate that inspirational vision of where you want your life to go. And then in week 2, we talked about defining the values. Because as you get to this waterfall, as you get to this destination, you're gonna make 1,000 decisions along the way. What are the values that drive every decision you make? So that you're making, by and large, healthy decisions as you go. You'll make some mistakes along the way, you'll stumble down a hill along the way. But we use the metaphor of the pathway to the waterfall, right? In the forest, there are many pathways. You can go left, right, and God may not have this rigid, pre-prescribed, my will path for every decision. But He journeys with us and wants us to make decisions based on His values, the values of Jesus. I recommended 3 values: enjoy the journey, love your family well, and leave the world better than you found it. Every decision that you make, can it be along those 3 values? Then last week, Tiffany and Carissa led us through gathering your community, gathering your people together, right? Because we don't walk this journey alone. Intentionally surrounding yourselves with good people doing good things, roughly sharing the same values, and then taking the risk and experiencing the reward of opening ourselves up a little bit more to our friends around us so that we're walking side by side and arm in arm with people who are enjoying the journey with us. And then today, we're gonna talk about our place of family, what we're calling today our first place of family. Our first place of family. As we'll see over the next 3 weeks, every human heart needs 3 healthy places. Today, we're gonna talk about the first place of family. Every healthy human heart needs a healthy family. And we see this right out of the gate in the Bible. The first page of the Bible talks about a vision of a healthy family. Genesis 1:26. God says, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. Right out of the gate, first page of the Bible, God says, let us make human beings in our image. So first of all, you might notice the plural here. This is in the plural word for God. And you think, well, I thought there was one God. Yes, there is one God who refers and dialogues in an us. There is singular and there is plural. Our God is singular and plural. And then later in the Old Testament, you start getting this sort of idea of God, Father, and God Spirit. And then you see in the person of Jesus, well, there's God Father, there's Son, and there's Spirit existing in perfect unity. So the nature of God is perfect unity, but in plurality, perfect unity, but in relationship. And so when this God who is one and plural makes man in his own image, he makes us plural with the vision of oneness. And we see that in Genesis 1:27, that this oneness of family can be experienced in marriage. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them and blessed them, married them in this covenant of selfless love. Plural yet one. That's God's design for us, made in his image. That can be experienced in marriage. And then we see in the very next verse that can also be experienced with parent and child. Then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it. Have kids. And so this idea of oneness and family can be experienced in marriage. The idea of oneness and family can be experienced in children. And then you read further along in the book of Genesis as this idea of family and family tree goes on. It extends beyond marriage, beyond children, into other relationships, into this whole, sort of clan and tribal thing. And so family becomes this broader vision of oneness, of connectedness. Some of you might have seen the movie, a classic movie, Lilo and Stitch, right? The idea of ohana. Hawaiian a word that means family by blood, by adoption, or by choice, right? It's a broader word of family, and we see that in the scripture as well, because the scriptural vision of family is not always this very clear, rigid thing. Blood-related, adoptive, by choice, just this sense of family. And the way I would kind of loosely define the sense of family are the relationships that you can't imagine life without. Just as the broadest definition of family, the relationships that I cannot imagine life without. We might have good friends, but those good friends might come and might go, and they might move away, and that would be painful. That may not be family. Family are the relationships that we cannot imagine living life without. And that could be in the traditional nuclear family definition, or it could be beyond that. And that's okay. When we think about family, we might sort of, default to the traditional nuclear family, husband, wife, kids. And I understand that, especially in some religious traditions, that is the focus. And that's fine. I come from a traditional nuclear family. The family I have now is a traditional nuclear family. That's great. But there are families that just walk a more complicated journey. They look a little bit different. They're outside of that traditional nuclear framework, and that is okay. In fact, according to Focus on the Family, which is a group pretty well dedicated to traditional nuclear family, they compiled a series of studies that tell us that 17.8% of American families are traditional nuclear. 17.8%, that's it. That means the vast majority of American families are not falling into that traditional nuclear definition. And that is okay. If you happen to come from a traditional nuclear family, you're in a small minority. And you might think to yourself, yeah, but we're better. You are not, right? We might think, oh yeah, we husband, wife, kids, we're very traditional, and that's maybe what God prefers, and I'm telling you that there's no evidence of that. That may be how the Bible got started, with sort of this vision, Adam and Eve and kids, but it quickly goes in a different direction. So a couple things about traditional nuclear family. Number one, traditional nuclear does not mean healthy. Does not mean healthy. In fact, you can be in a solid traditional nuclear family, and it could be highly toxic, highly abusive, and fear-based. Yes, we're together, right? We're together. But internally, that is a disaster. So traditional nuclear is a perfectly fine model. We enjoy that as a family, but it doesn't necessarily automatically mean that you're healthier or better. Second, I'm gonna have a little fun with this. Families in the biblical account are rarely traditional nuclear. So we might think, oh, traditional nuclear, that must be God's vision. I can't find a family in the Bible that's traditional nuclear. Now, I didn't do a study. I didn't sit down and study this for a day, but I've been swirling around this sermon for about a week and a half. And I've been studying the Bible for 40 years. I'm having trouble finding a traditional nuclear family in the entire Bible. You go, well, Treadway, you started with Adam and Eve. A half an hour later, one son murdered the other. I mean, you can't find it. Pick a hero in the Bible. All kinds of wives and all kinds of nonsense and violence, and it's just like, wow. Is there a traditional nuclear family in the Bible? I don't know. You just do some study. I didn't even do a Google search, so I was pretty lazy. If you can find one, let me know. Jesus' own family wasn't traditional nuclear. So if we think, well, if this is what God prefers, if this is the standard, like the highest standard of family, then Jesus, the Son of God, Savior of the world, did not come from a traditional nuclear family. Unwed and pregnant. Jesus' dad was not his bio dad. Jesus' brothers were not his bio brothers. Jesus lost his non-bio dad at some point along the way, and Mary was a single mother. And so if you are one of the 83% of people who either come from or experience now a non-traditional, non-nuclear family, just know you're great, right? You're in. It's great. We're all sort of in this world of striving to experience family. It may not look like the biodome, family that is the ideal that somebody kind of invented. It might look more like the biblical families that are kind of a little bit of a mess here and there, and they're just a little non-traditional, either in, relationship or in roles. Because the roles might not even be traditional roles. The roles can be kind of different. Roles can be kind of custom to what works for you. I'm gonna show you a 2-minute Nate Bargatze clip. First of all, if you're easily offended, see someone. Second of all, this whole thing is about non-traditional roles in family, and it's just for fun, so we're just gonna have a good time. I've seen this 100 times, and I'm gonna be over there belly laughing on the floor. Nate Bargatze is just completely awesome. And this whole thing is about sort of he and his wife's non-traditional roles, and it is called My Wife is the Man of the House. So let's take a look.
And it can become hard because she'll hire someone to fix something and they always come talk to me. I just think they're used to talking to husbands and they come to me and I'm like, I don't know why you're here. We had our water heater, something, I don't know, but I walked by at the wrong time. Now I'm in a water heater conversation. And I'm like, yeah, well, these tough time for water heaters, Well, finally, he's like, well, where's the water heater at? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think we have one, to be honest. And we would like to buy one from you today. So if we could go out to your truck, I would love to pick one out. And he was very confused by this. He didn't know what to say, but, it's a new time. So he was like, is your husband here by any chance? I said, yeah, she's around here somewhere. She's probably in this shed. The guy that we have that mows our yard is my wife. It's free, which is nice. I don't care for the tone it is mowed in. She wanted to mow it. And I was like, look, that's fine, but I want you to go tell every neighbor that you choose to do this. I don't want to always be getting stopped like, you the guy that makes his wife mow the yard? I'm like, yeah, I got my mom on the roof right now.
All right, there's neighbor Gazzi. Thank you for laughing. You laughed much harder than the first service, so I like you better today. So, traditional definition of family, traditional roles is like, it's just not always that clean. So I tried to look up, okay, well, what is the definition of family beyond traditional, kind of bloodline, beyond traditional roles? What is the experience we all long for in family? Couldn't find one. I searched the entire internet. I could not find a definition of family like at that visceral heart level, that first community, that first place that we so want to experience health in, our home. So I made this up, and you can take it or leave it, love it or hate it, take a snapshot of it or turn away. But this is my best shot at a definition of family, the thing we all long to enjoy in the first place called home, family. The core human relationships that should provide the closest interdependent sense of unconditional love, support, and respect with a shared story and shared values typically experienced through the roles of marriage, parent, child, and extended relationships. Kind of wordy, kind of long. I worked on this a long time, so I hope you like it. If you don't tell me. But this softens a little bit. This says, okay, these are the relationships that should provide the closest interdependent self of unconditional love, but they don't always. It also provides a little freedom that we typically experience this through marriage, parent, child, and extended relationships, but sometimes those aren't healthy and sometimes they're not available. And so it is perfectly good to pursue this kind of love, this kind of support, this kind of shared story and shared values with other people who may not fall in that, traditional hereditary line. And I do think this is what we want, that interdependent sense of unconditional love, support, and respect that you cannot imagine living life without. That's what we want. It's not always super clean to get there. So we're going to categorize families in 3 ways. This is not scientific. This is just very subjective. But I guarantee as we talk about 3 kinds of families in terms of health, you will say, okay, yep, that's us, or yep, that's us, or yep, that's us, all right? So here are the 3 kinds of families we're going to talk about in the last half of our message today. Number 1, the fairly healthy family. Fairly healthy family. I couldn't even bring myself to say healthy family. There's no family on earth that's like, oh yeah, picture of health, got it all figured out. If that's you, you're lying, go away. At best, we're fairly healthy families. Then there's the not so healthy family. You're kind of a tweener. There's some things you can point to that says, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And things you can point to that go, that's really bad, right? You're kind of in between. You have hope for health, but you've got a lot of work to do. And then there's the very not so healthy family. Bad grammar, but I could use other words like disaster, apocalyptic, hellscape. And these are families that are really in some trouble. So there's a gradient in terms of family health. Fairly healthy, not so healthy, very not so healthy. And kind of define where you're at. And some of you might be a little dualistic. I am dualistic. The family I came from is not so healthy. Some good things to point to, but generally not so healthy. The family I'm in now, I could say, generally speaking, yes, we're fairly healthy and enjoying that. Work to do, of course, but you might have a different definition of the family you came from and the family you're in now. But all of us, regardless of where we came from or where we are now, we want to walk a journey towards becoming or staying a fairly healthy family. So let's talk about the fairly healthy family. Research shows that people born from healthy families have many advantages in terms of their personal health and well-being and their ongoing relational health. Just science, kind of obvious. If you come from a fairly healthy family, odds are you're going to have a fairly healthy future relationally and in terms of your personal well-being. It's just the way it works, right? Family and the health of a family is just passed on. It doesn't mean that if you come from a fairly healthy family, you're automatically going to have a healthy family, but odds are you're going to have some advantages. Also, science shows that if you come from an unhealthy family, odds are you're going to have a lot of disadvantages and you're going to have some things to overcome. That's going to take a life plan. It's going to take intentionality. It's going to take some work. And so I will just tell you, I won't get into a lot of detail, but I come from a not so healthy family. It took a lot of work to move the needle so that my family would be a fairly healthy family. Lots and lots of work. Because I don't want the disadvantages that I had to be passed on to my kids and potentially their kids, right? So it does take a lot of work. Healthy family does not ensure healthy family. It can go sideways. Unhealthy family does not ensure unhealthy family. But it is going to take some work and intentionality, and that's what we want to do today. So for those of you who have healthy families, you know what it's like to feel that sense of love. You are loved and your family is grateful for you. And then you love your family and you're grateful for them. You've got some things that go sideways every once in a while, but by and large, you're fairly healthy. As I've celebrated before, my wife's side of the family is fairly healthy. They've got some things that pop up every once in a while. They have to kind of deal with things, but overall, the big arc, they love each other and they're grateful for each other. And as a result, my wife's got a lot of advantages because she came from a fairly healthy family that we get to benefit from. I got to benefit from the fairly healthy line of my wife in terms of building our own family. Now, I came from a line that is not so healthy, and so I've had some disadvantages that I've had to overcome, and with my wife's help and love hanging out with her family and other healthy families in the church, and a lot of good counsel along the way, and some therapy along the way, and a zillion books along the way, and a life plan along the way. It's like we're getting there. We're getting there. These are the basic, big picture habits of a fairly healthy family. Write these down if you want. They're fairly simple. Each one of these could be a 2-hour seminar. We'll spare you. But planning time together. Time, it just is this giant sucking sound. Busyness, busyness, busyness. It's hard to find time or make time. A generally healthy, fairly healthy family makes time for each other. Talked about this a couple weeks ago. Have as many dinners together as you can. Do something fun, go out, once a month at least. Get a quarterly mini getaway, doesn't have to cost any money. And then an annual vacation or staycation, just invest time together. Second habit of a fairly healthy family is intentionally encourage each other. This is huge, and there's so much research on this. Intentionally encourage each other. What a lot of families do that are less healthy is they are kind of in this competition. Are you respecting me? If not, I'm not respecting you. If you said something sideways to me, I'm gonna say something sideways to you. If you're a little terse, I'm gonna be a little terse. And so that's just the natural, normal state of human beings. Fairly healthy families intentionally say, you know what? I'm going to encourage you. I'm gonna find ways to say, good job. I am proud of you. Thank you for being such an amazing wife, husband. Thank you for doing that little thing, Thank you for being kind. I'm gonna look for ways to encourage you. I just enjoy spending time with you, right? My wife and I just got away for a weekend, and like the thing that I love hearing the most is I love getting away with you. Like after 31 years of marriage, she might be lying through her teeth, but she says it. She plans on saying, I still love spending time with you. Third habit of a fairly healthy family, manage conflict well. Families that are not fairly healthy, it's a competition. Who's winning this fight? Who's winning this argument? That is not a characteristic of a healthy family. Characteristic of a healthy family is we might disagree. There's going to be conflict in a family. We're going to disagree. If a family has no conflict, you are probably the most unhealthy family in the world because everybody's all afraid of it, whatever. But healthy families have conflict. Like, how do you manage that conflict? It's not to win an argument, it's that the family wins. So if we're having a fight about spending, it's not whether I'm right or you're wrong or my fault or your fault. It's like, what's the best for this family in terms of spending? Let's get there. And that might have conflict, but we're getting to a place where the family wins. Fourth habit of a fairly healthy family is to forgive quickly. Forgive quickly. Don't hold grudges. Don't hold grudges. Now, if there's a pattern of pain, it's really hard, and you need some help. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But just for the stuff, the normal disconnects and offenses that come through the day, just to be able to say, hey, yeah, that thing did hurt, so you're recognizing that, but I know you might not have meant it, or we're in a bad spot, and we're forgiven, and it's all good. And by the way, I will bring that up at the right time 6 years from now, just for funsies, but I've forgiven you. I've totally forgiven you. Let's look at just 3 biblical principles that are just simple words of truth to keep a fairly healthy family. Proverbs 16, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healing for the body. Pour kind words into each other. Ephesians 4:26, don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. That is Ephesians 4:26. I think, I could be wrong, Jenny, talk to her afterwards. I don't think we've had 5 nights in our 31 years of marriage that we've gone to bed with unresolved anger. Now, maybe tonight will be a 6, and that could be super fun, so I'll report back on that. But generally speaking, try to resolve things pretty quick. Ephesians 4:32, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another just as God through Christ has forgiven you. That idea of forgiving offenses, the whole message of Jesus is about forgiveness. You're good with God. Just because he's your father and just because he loves you, you're good. He doesn't define you by your failures. So we're not going to define each other by our failures. So those are the general patterns and habits of a fairly healthy family. What if your family is not so healthy? My family growing up was not so healthy. There was alcoholism involved in my entire upbringing for my brother and I, and there's a lot of churning and a lot of anger in there. So what are the symptoms of a not so healthy family? Here are the symptoms of a not so healthy family, and I want to show these to you. Issues remain unresolved. You're just in a general state of tenseness in your family, and things just don't get resolved. You're always churning this issue and this issue and this issue, and you bicker and disconnect about this issue, and it's never resolved. Nothing ever comes to a close. It's just a constant churning of a lot of different issues. Conversations either stay surface level or they blow up. You keep it kind of at the surface level because you want to keep things kind of together, or you get so frustrated, just like, ah, and then here we go, and you're now in another churn of the same issues. 3, you carefully manage gatherings. You carefully manage gatherings if you're in a not so healthy family. Okay, we're getting together for Thanksgiving. We know there's so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. These people aren't getting along. We're having a tough time, so you cannot talk about politics. You cannot talk about religion. It might be good anyway, even in a healthy family, but you're managing things. We've got to keep these two separated. These two cannot be, together. You're just managing kind of the steady state of dysfunction. 4th, some relationships are entirely broken. In a family that's not so healthy, usually there's one or a few lines of relationship that are they're so broken. You're not talking to each other. You're not connecting in any way, and probably will not. The offenses are just so significant, they're broken. So how do you walk a road from not so healthy to fairly healthy? Here are the patterns of those who walk from not so healthy to fairly healthy. First, do no harm. Do no harm. Not so healthy families do tend to harm each other with their words, with their actions, passive aggressive, whatever. You're in a general state of not feeling good, and so you're gonna make sure nobody else feels good. You're feeling disrespect, so you're gonna make sure there's no respect. This is normal and it's totally natural. Somebody's gotta reverse that and say, okay, I'm gonna make the decision to do no harm. If I'm feeling disrespect, I'm gonna intentionally work on not being disrespectful. If somebody says something disrespectful, I'll address it. I'm not a doormat, I'm not weak, but I'm not going to make things even Steven by saying something disrespectful. Do no harm. Second, plan meaningful or fun gatherings. So this is kind of a counterbalance. Your get-togethers maybe are not good. Your natural daily rhythms are not great. So you're gonna plan something that's just fun, or you're gonna plan something that's just meaningful. And it could be, hey, we're gonna have a board game night. Be careful with the board game you choose. At our house, we can't do Settlers of Catan well. We just can't do it well. There's screaming. And so, yeah, that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but a little bit true. Pick something that you know is gonna just work. What do you all love to do? You might not be in a healthy spot, but what do you all love to do? What's your favorite restaurant? What's a favorite activity? And just go do that. Probe if and when restoration could be possible. So for example, you're at a gathering and you know this relationship, let's say it's with a sibling. You know your relationship with your sibling is just not firing right, part of the general, sort of lack of health. And this, you just want that relationship to be better. Somebody's gotta start probing whether that's possible. And if it's you may say, hey, listen, I know we haven't been connecting. Do you wanna get a cup of coffee sometime or have a conversation sometime to chit chat? No, thanks, I don't think that'd be a good idea right now. Okay, you've probed, now's not the time. But they just might say, that one little invitation might say, you know what, you're right, we have been kind of disconnecting, let's get that coffee. I have an exact coffee like that this Wednesday coming up. And it's just a way to just over time probe, can we get at least this relationship right? Fourth, someone take the lead. Someone has to start. Usually if a family is generally unhealthy, everybody's got this state of offense and state of self-protection. Someone, one person has to step up and say, all right, I'm gonna be the one to not be offended. I'm gonna be the one to not fire back. I'm gonna be, not in some self-righteous, but just, hey, someone's gotta serve this family in this way, and maybe it could be me. Just trying to navigate all the complexities and all the hurt to get to a place of better health. And then get help as needed. Families that are not so healthy, oftentimes, maybe not all the times, but oftentimes need help. It could be an experienced therapist. It could be pastoral counseling can kind of get you started. A trusted friend who you know is wise, who knows your story. Get some help as needed. Proverbs 11:14 says, where there is no counsel, the people fail, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Your family is swirling, not so healthy. Sometimes you need to get some counsel and to say, hey, we're struggling a little bit. We've tried on our own to get this thing squared away. It's not working. We need a little bit of help. Now let's talk about the very not so healthy families. Those of you who are in a mess. There's hope for you, 100%. One of the things we love to do around here the most, and it's almost a little weird, if I hear a story about a family that is an absolute dumpster fire, I love it. The worse, the better. I mean, if you want, hey, Pastor Scott, can we meet? I'm like almost hoping this thing's a giant apocalyptic disaster. Because, and I know it sounds kind of weird, and I am tongue-in-cheek, and I do speak in hyperbole, but I love seeing God's grace at work in the hard stuff. I mean the stuff that is just nasty. The stuff that is, well, this cannot possibly work. If there's a way forward, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's so abusive and even harmful, it's like, okay, we gotta wind this thing down. There's a time and a place for that. But if there's hope for better days ahead, that this very not so healthy family can walk a journey to just becoming not so healthy, and the victory of that, let's walk this journey, let's go. Here's best practices to go from very not so healthy to not so healthy. Find your healers. Find your healers. If your family is a disaster, you cannot heal yourself. It's impossible. You cannot get your own act together. It's impossible. In the context of a home life, the pain is so deep, the patterns are so deep, so entrenched, you can't get your way out. You are in a canyon and the cliffs are sheer and vertical. You can't get yourself out. You have to find your healers. And fortunately, in our day and age, there are healers everywhere. Again, from counselors and pastoral counselors and good, wise friends. There's so much help available to throw you down the rope and pull you up because you can't get out yourself. Find your healers. Just imagine, the proverbial train wreck, right? Well, our marriage is a train wreck. Our family is a train wreck. Relationship with my parents and siblings, train wreck. Well, imagine that train wreck. Cars are off the tracks. It's a mess. These things are on fire. These people are bloodied and bruised and broken bones. If that's where you're at as a family, if your family's a train wreck, you're not going to get up as a wounded mess and go, oh, I'm here to save the day. It's not possible. You need the EMTs, you need the first responders, you need the people with healthy bodies and some experience to say, hey, listen, you guys are a mess and we're going to put this together bone by bone and piece by piece. If you're willing and if there's a pathway, let's go. Find your healers. Walk through a boundaries process. Usually families that are very not so healthy, the idea of boundaries are nowhere to be found. There could be codependent, could be massive dysfunction where you're still together-ish, but you're wounding each other so much, you don't even know how to think straight about what's healthy and what's not, what you should do or what you shouldn't do. So walking a boundaries process, and the reason why that has quotes on it is because there's a very good book called Boundaries, whole line of therapy about boundaries, to find out in a discerning way with the wisdom of others what, as the next slide says, what should be dealt with, deferred, or ditched. Dealt with, deferred, or ditched. Because some relationships in your very not so healthy family, some relationships could be salvaged. You've got to identify that. Go through an intentional boundaries process of identifying which relationships are healthy enough to salvage. Maybe I can reconnect with my mom. Things may not seem too dysfunctional or too harmful or too abusive or whatever. maybe I can invest, maybe I can deal with that relationship. But I should not be dealing with my, crazy Uncle Louie. That one is so far gone. That one needs to be deferred or ditched. That's why I brought this box up. This box is like a boundary, right? You have all this swirling dysfunction of a family, harming each other, downward spiral, harming each other. To walk through a process of boundaries means, okay, I'm gonna identify these relationships that really, there's no legitimate potential of getting that healthier. And so I'm gonna put these relationships in this box, and I'm not gonna deal with them. And there's no downside. They're just not healthy, they're toxic, even abusive. If I keep investing in those relationships or have hope for those relationships, I'm just gonna be destroyed. So I'm gonna walk a process. I'm putting those relationships in this box, and I am sealing up this box. And whether temporarily or permanently, I am not dealing with this. You know the freedom of that? And I've got one very important relationship in my life that's in that box. I may or may not get to it. It may or may not be the healthiest thing for me to get to it, but I'm telling you, I am free and have a healthier world right now because somebody walked with me through a journey to put one of those relationships in a box. I hope I'll get to it, but it may never be the healthy thing to do. It's a very sobering process, sometimes painful process, but absolutely necessary. Start a careful plan to deal with what can be dealt with. If you've identified which of those relationships can be dealt with, now you gotta work a plan. All right, I think it'll be healthy to restore my relationship with my mom. I'm gonna get help. Again, therapist, counselor, good friend, somebody's gotta know what's going on there and help me restore that relationship with my mom. Very careful plan. And then make new family relationships going forward. Make new family relationships going forward that may not be a part of your traditional nuclear line. It could be, oh, Hannah, I need a family, this dysfunctional, dumpster fire, I can't find it here, but I'm gonna find it here. And that's also a profound journey that's very good that can give you a sense of family. I love Proverbs 22:3, the prudent see danger and take refuge. That's a boundary verse. You see danger, God doesn't want you walking into danger. He wants you seeking refuge. If your family is a danger, he doesn't want you walking into danger, seek refuge. Galatians 6:5, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. You are not responsible for the choices of your family. If it's dysfunctional and somebody is dysfunctional, it is their dysfunction you do not have to take on. You're responsible for your own conduct. Choose to walk a road that is healthier in building a stronger family. I want to wrap up by showing you one slide. It has the 3 categories of family, and it's got an arrow. For those of you who are very not so healthy family, I would encourage you to walk your own painted picture of the next 5 years. The way I did my assignment this last week, go through that journey of just imagining what your family could be in 5 years. It's a mess right now. You are in trouble right now. I would encourage you not to envision the picture of health, but just envision a process, a deliberate, careful process, keeping expectations a little bit low. I can only take care of myself. I'm only responsible for me. But at least I'm gonna make some decisions that could get this very dysfunctional family, very not so healthy family, in a little bit better spot. As is wise, as is safe. That's gonna be my painted picture. And for those of you who are not so healthy in your family life, to paint a picture in 5 years, can we get to a zone where we are more healthy, maybe even in the fairly healthy zone? And what do we need to do? Write it down. What do we need to do to invest in our family? To reconcile some relationships, to get in some better habits so that we can all enjoy at some point that sense of a fairly healthy family that we all long for. As I pray, as we close, I'm just gonna create a little bit of space to dream, to imagine, and seek God's guidance along the way, what our family could be in 5 years and beyond. Let's pray. God, we thank you for our time together. That moved very, very fast and maybe sparked a lot of emotions and a lot of thoughts about where we came from in our home, where we are now, and where we could potentially go. And God, I pray that you would give every one of us, regardless of whether our family is fairly healthy or a total disaster, a spark of hope that things can begin to get better and stronger. that we can follow Jesus well, and we can love selflessly, we can restore relationships, we can extend forgiveness as is wise and as is safe toward the goal of a healthier and healthier family. For those families in here that are in real trouble, God, would you bring healing? Would you bring grace? Would you bring forgiveness and kindness that can walk them on a journey towards more life, deeper relationships, unconditional love? I pray that you would give every family patience and determination to get there. And God, for families that are on this journey, I pray that today, and by your word, by your grace, by the example of Jesus, that they can get to a healthy spot and potentially be mentors to others along the way, bringing healing to families in a way that satisfies the human heart, to be unconditionally loved, accepted, embraced, and to truly belong in our first place of home. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.